Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. It's quite difficult in 10 minutes to give a diagnosis of the profession and maybe also some proposals for a therapy for some recoveries which might be necessary. So it might be sketchy in some ways, so apologize for that. But I'm very open for questions because what I'm saying you, even if it's headlines, is grounded in some data. The question is, are we abolishing our profession, our own profession? Maybe the question could be a bit more specific. Are we allowing others to abolish our profession? And what I'm going to do here is not only focusing on education. I give a sort of an international view from outside. I'm working in Sweden. I have been working in many countries as an educator, and I have been building myself in 7 European countries with very different situations with my practice. So I have a little bit an overview. And since then, as I live most of the time in Denmark, a lot of things have done. The biggest architecture firms have been sold to engineering companies or like Schmidt Hammer Lassen to investment firms. They have, of course, fired a lot of people. The biggest engineering companies have taken over Henning Larsen. He would rotate in his grave. This is a Scandinavian specificity that would be not work in Germany and in Austria and in France and in the rest of Europe. And I will tell you why. So there is some countries where the decline of the profession is maybe faster and deeper than in others. It is happening everywhere. This is America, the US billings index since 96. And when it goes over this line, the practices are growing. If it's under this line, they are shrinking. And what you see there is, of course, fluctuations, but the fluctuations are on a level that the whole goes down. And I was teaching a lot in China, in Beijing. And in 2010, if you came out from the university, you got an extremely high salaries, the highest salaries of all academics. While in Denmark, the diploma students, when they leave the schools of architecture, they get the lowest. That has also changed. So even in the country where it was a gold digger situation, now you can see after the housing crisis, it has changed dramatically. Let me look a little bit of some comparisons. The average size of architectural practices, there we see, these are data from the Architect Council of Europe. So it wasn't my official data, you can look them up. There's nowhere in Europe such a high monopolization and concentration of architectural offices than in Sweden and Norway and Finland. And as I'm from Austria, interesting enough, Austria has exactly the same in about 10 million inhabitants like Sweden. So the number of people is the same. The market size is almost the same. But the value per architect is 75,800 euros to 89,000 euros. So that is remarkably bigger. And when it comes to income, then we see in Sweden, a principal has averaged 85 euros an hour, in Austria 111, and then employees said 71 to 94. So it's about between 20 and 30% higher income. I could give now a lot of data. I'm not doing that. Just showing there is some differences, and we might discuss why they are like this. Some time ago, I found this newspaper. It's an American business paper. It says 25 professions you should avoid. and one was the routine architect. And I show that to my students, not to get rid of them, but to ask the question, what is actually a non-routine architect? If there is a routine architect, there must be also something different to that. We have a high responsibility and building, we all know that. The global emissions, the enormous waste is the highest proportion of all waste, building waste, etc. But at the same time, we have the knowledge, or a lot of us have the knowledge, where does it go to? And one British architect series said that us architects have to an earth-shaping rhetoric, we save the planet, but a Boy Scout activities. So there's a big gap between these realities. And when we look to this, you know that this is a dangerous building in Göteborg, which should be demolished, which is a shining example of modernism. But that's not why I'm showing that. I'm showing that the company who won the competition with a small company in Sweden together wrote on their website, at the core of our design philosophy is a consistent strive for new knowledge and a determined commitment to people, culture, and ecosystem. That is at its best greenwash, and I would see actually it's just a lie. So to summarize that, the challenges we face are exponentially growing. The cities are growing, housing crisis, climate, migration, resources, etc. on the whole globe. And on the other hand, on the whole globe, basically, with maybe some specificities, the impact, the self-esteem, the economy of architects is shrinking. And the question is, why is it that? And how can this gap be closed or narrowed at least? So I ask 3 questions. Are we doing the right things? Are we doing the things we do in the right way? And are we prepared for changes in the field? And I want to give 2 quotes which are very important for me. Alvar said in 1959, architecture belongs to culture, not to civilization. So that's a big difference to engineering. And Cedric Price, who died in 2003, said, technology is the answer, but what was the question? And who asked these questions? So, some quick thoughts, what I think is important. Strengthen and regulate professional bodies of architecture. These are all European bodies of architecture who have a stronger impact, who are sitting together with the government, who can define and decide regulation, who have can oppose consequences on architects who are not fulfilling those, etc. As long, and I think that has to be built up, that no one's gave it to the architects, they had to fight for them. Sometimes, and they still have to fight for them because there is a lot of political activities to weaken these bodies. The other thing is apply European regulation for public procurement, oppose corrupt processes, enhance fair architectural competitions. So when we see that these are the 260,000 euro design cost actually is for a public building required tendering or a competition, which is deserves that name. So you just cannot point to, oh, you did it very well, and now you have to do it again. I heard a lot of stories like that from colleagues in Sweden. Competitions is a big thing, but real architectural competition. I was invited, I won 15 competitions, which is quite a lot for a very small office. But I only won them because before the Architect Council of Europe has established this agenda, I was fulfilling it. It has to be fair, transparent, a strong and independent jury, a clear brief, anonymous, a clear prize money, which is rewarding what you actually do, copyright, etc. I was invited to competitions in Denmark, and I refused after I found out that there was not one architect. It was a fire station, and there was a lot of fire engineers. And of course, they should be there, but if there is no architect, so what's the point to take part? And when it comes to regulation, this photo is a few months old. It's in Gothenburg. I think this building should not have been demolished anyway, because it could be easily transformed into something better. But this is illegal according to European law, that you just demolish and mix all and just put it on wasteland. So if you do that in Germany, the next day the police stands there and closed. And the point is, people go to the police and point and say, or to court and say, this is illegal, and then they have to do. So there is another culture also of, I would say, argument or legal thing. And for me, I passed it many times when I was in Gothenburg, and I saw it every day how it went. And this is a catastrophe. It has been done 50 years ago, and the EU has done some regulation which should do that. The other issue is AI. So, and I'm pretty sure this is a very simplified what I'm showing here, but a lot of what architect students, and they sense that, the bad students sense that, are doing now is irrelevant in at least 5 years. But it would not be irrelevant to have architects. Architects who have a vision and a philosophy, who have a client engagement, who make strategic decisions, have an ethical judgment, leadership, community involvement, and responsibility for approval, etc. That cannot be done by AI, while conceptual optimization of volumes and documentation and coding and rendering is already done to some extent and will be done more. So there is a problem with the universities, including Chalmers, teaching business as usual and widely ignore these developments. Another issue is, for instance, in China, where there is a crisis, there's architects' offices, I know, with 4,000 people, and they were then unemployed. So they were resizing practices, regrouping, diversifying, and possibly relocating to other areas, and not all being in Beijing or in Shanghai. So, and they are then a smaller group, much more effective than these huge monsters of offices with a lot of loss of activities inside. It's another thing is, which is the same, is decentralize, collaborate, and de-mainstreamize a project. So if you are an architect, I don't think every architect should ever think to build an opera house, but you might have, for instance, this building, in Gothenburg, it's a very small building, and it has a higher impact than a lot of the glossy architecture which has been built the last 10 years. This is just an example, and I could talk about all of them now. Include people, users in creative participatory processes. This is a way in Austria how to organize these processes, and the outcome of the process is not an architecture project. The outcome of the process is a brief. It's the basis for the design. So these are, in that sense, not co-designers who tell us whatever. All wishes are welcome there, but at the end, you know exactly in what design direction you should go. I have been the examiner and supervisor of a PhD student who was investigating the profession of architect, and she found out that different types of architects, unsolicited, turnkey, generic, Scandinavian, label architect, posted architect, kitchen architect, subcontractor, etc. So there is a lot of different ways we can work. So these are practices which have already changed in very different ways. And these are new practices which are working on another scale without having clients, emerging and proactive practices